help me welcome Ed to the stage. Ed is the most prolific teacher of cybersecurity, red teaming, and penetration testing and offense in the world. He's taught more than 11,000 people how to do advanced things in this. But the reason he's so good at it is he's the one who goes in after all the big attacks and finds out how they actually worked.
I'd like to set the stage here by talking about 3 of these top 7 issues. And please do send in questions so that we can have the open panel discussion after we go through our 3 brief presentations. One of the biggest issues over the last couple of years has been the explosion of ransomware, especially crypto ransomware. Prior to the last few years, ransomware would sometimes get into systems and break the system so you couldn't log into it until you paid the ransom. But crypto ransomware is so much more powerful, especially when it uses public key cryptography. I find this fascinating because RSA, this conference, was created as a celebration of what great things crypto can do for us, and information security more generally. For example, it can enable commerce, it can enable communication, it can really drive things forward. But I remember way back in 1996, there was a white paper that came out on the topic of crypto virology. It was created by Adam Young and Modi Jung, and it dealt with this issue of what if somebody could use cryptography to cause pain, to do really nasty stuff. And one of the examples they covered in this white paper was crypto ransomware. Here we are 21 years later, and it's one of the major attack vectors today. There are over 150 different active families of crypto ransomware available today. In surveys, organizations say this is one of their top fears of a bad guy getting into their systems and using some crypto to encrypt their critical data and prevent them from being able to do business. Now, if you think about this crypto ransomware, it's an ideal way for bad guys to attack. Cryptography allows the bad guys to hold hostage your data, and they don't need a command and control infrastructure for it. The malware gets into your system, the bad guy doesn't have to communicate with it. Additionally, the bad guy doesn't have to exfiltrate the data. It's still sitting there in your environment. So this is perfect for him. Oh, and the best thing, the victim contacts the bad guy saying, please help me to get my data back. So no command and control, no exfiltration, and they call the bad guy for help. Wow. How is this moving? How is this evolving as we go forward? It's increasingly targeting not just individual consumers, not just your mom or your dad or your grandma. It's increasingly attacking target organizations, enterprises, focusing on finding backups and encrypting those, as well as finding network shares. If something gets into a network share, it can bring down a whole file server or even a group of file servers. And we've seen some significant attacks along those lines in just the last 12 months. We expect many more this year and in subsequent years. So, what can you do to take action to try to prevent your organization from being hit with ransomware? First, the foundations of system and network security hygiene. The Center for Internet Security has its critical controls. These critical controls define certain security activities that will help make you better than the average organization in securing your environment. And that goes a long way into stopping this kind of attack. You should also watch your network shares. Having shares from individual laptops or workstations to other laptops or workstations is asking for trouble. Additionally, you should have network shares on your file servers only when you have a defined business need, and you want to limit the permissions so that if one workstation gets infected with crypto ransomware, it might reach out to that server and try to start encrypting files on the server itself, but by limiting the permissions of each user to what they need for their job, it will have a limited impact. It won't be able to take down the whole server. You should also consider this kind of attack in advance. Many organizations are getting hit with ransomware. If your organization is hit with ransomware, who is it that's going to decide whether you pay or not? You're going to need to decide who decides. Now, you might say, well, look, we have a business principle here. We're not going to pay the bad guys. But if you're confronted with a business reality of paying the bad guys a few bitcoins versus being offline or losing millions of dollars worth of data, your business principle might give way to the business reality of having to pay the ransom. It's an unfortunate thing, but you need to decide who's going to decide. Also, if you get hit with ransomware, realize that you are now in a negotiation with the bad guys. And they're very practical business people. They understand the principle that some money is better than no money, right? So if disaster strikes, your best bet is to look small and poor. You don't want to say, hey, we're a Fortune 500 company. You just encrypt one of our critical file servers. We'd like to buy from you the key to be able to decrypt that data. No, you should look like a small individual who has trouble scraping together 1 or 2 Bitcoins to pay their ransom.
What do you think will be the most attacked resource, device, or service by ransomware this year?
I do think we're going to see more targeted ransomware through spear phishing, that's how it often gets in, and small to mid-sized banks. I think that is a ripe target. We've seen over the last year a lot of attacks against hospitals, but I think it's going to move to banks because that's where the money is.
Mike, have you seen any ransomware attacks yet against anything in the critical infrastructure?
So there have been ransomware attacks that affected critical infrastructure operators or entities, small power systems, and we talked about their San Francisco transit. The reality, though, is they weren't able to get to the files that you could encrypt to affect the control system and disrupt operations. But there's only a matter of time. Poor architectures could lead them there very quickly.
Also, related to that, I think if you're a nation-state actor, you have a significant interest in disguising your actions as ransomware to avoid attribution and such. There's so much ransomware out there, it's just a no-brainer to make your stuff look like ransomware if it gets discovered.